Today, we are so excited to have with us Alex Shapiro. There she is. And she was deemed one of the most noteworthy composers for the 21st century by Carthage College. Um, she was given, upon the premiere of her electroacoustic tone poem for symphonic band Liquid Compass. She's the recipient of numerous honors, national honors and recognitions from the American Music Center, ASCAP, the American Composers Forum, Meet the Composer, and has been awarded the Artist Fellowship from the California Arts Council and the MacDowell Colony. I could go on and on about her. Her music, she calls herself a pan-genre composer with a penchant for organically spanning across idioms, often in a single piece. She has a fabulous website. If you haven't checked it out, you should. If you haven't played any of her music, you should. She's not just a composer, but she's a speaker who motivates people inside and outside of music. She's a writer. She takes awesome, amazing wildlife and just nature pictures too. So check out her website. Definitely. We are so excited to have her here. She has a project going with a new curriculum. And we have with her, and I'm going to let her talk about that, but we have with her Dr. Glenn Hayes, our very own member from Wisconsin, because he is working with her and adapting for middle and high school. If you don't know him, he's in his 34th year as the director of bands at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, and he conducts the Symphonic Wind Ensemble, Chamber Winds, University Community Band, and the Warhawk Marching Band. He does all sorts of teaching there, including graduate and undergraduate conducting, wind literature, secondary instrumental music methods, student teacher supervision, and marching band techniques. So he's a busy guy too. We are so excited to have them. So with no further ado, I introduce you to Alex Shapiro and Dr. Glenn Hayes.
Well, good morning, everyone. Is the screen sharing working, Ryan?
Yes, it should be.
Okay, cool. I first learned of the quote that you're looking at from Tim Sharp's
hang on.
book.
Sorry, Glenn.
Yeah.
It is enabled, but go ahead and try it again.
Oh, okay. So it's not showing.
Okay. But we get to see you, and that's even better.
Yeah. Alex, fill for me for a minute, please.
Well, greetings, everybody. It is very exciting for me to be able to join Glenn. I'm sure you all know Glenn really well. He's such a rock star, and he's been a real rock star in my life, I got to tell you, because of the many, many band pieces and electroacoustic band pieces, nonetheless, that I've written. Glenn has been a co-commissioner on quite a lot of them. I mean, probably most of them. So he has been a force for good in my life artistically for the longest time. And now, as you're about to hear, for joining me with this concept of education for the 21st century. Take it away, Glenn.
Are we good now?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So this is what I was talking about. And first of all, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Tim Sharp, who was Executive Director of ACDA. I think it's okay if we mention ACDA here, isn't it, Kristen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We're ecumenical. I love this quote because I thought, this is it. And the thing that drew me to Alex's music the first time I heard it was, this is what we need as educators, especially in the 21st century. I remember Libby Larson looking at College Band Directors National Association once and saying, are you trying to become conductors of early music ensembles, or are you just going to let it happen? And everybody cheered. Alex Shapiro, though, has taken that concept of moving the band forward, and choir and orchestra, and has actually done something about it. And we'll talk about her piece, but momentarily. But I don't know about you, I've been feeling like this. In which, okay, we have time for anything and everything. I mean, I found out about the whole quarantine on campus coming back on a bus from conducting at Carnegie Hall with the wind ensemble, and we had to exit out in the football stadium parking lot, put instruments in the ticket office. We had to go into quarantine. It's like, whoa, what? And then campus shut down. It's like, oh, what are we going to do? And I think we all went through that. And I think we all have a lot of fears of students putting the instruments down permanently, administration seeing cost savings. I've got friends who are athletic band directors on large campuses, and their jobs are in peril because there are no athletic bands. And, kind of a nagging question, do a significant number of people actually miss us and the live art form, et cetera, and what we have to offer? These are not easy questions, but my students will tell you, I'm open and honest with you. Um, so, the reality is we're going to see losses in numbers because of the decline in the population, especially if we just keep doing the same thing. I've heard a lot of stories from across the country of students disengaging. I was just talking with Cam from Bands of America a few weeks ago, and that's one of their big efforts right now because everything they've had is canceled. We're used to living at the top of this Maslow chart, creativity and all those wonderful aspects. And everyone we know, including ourselves, has been thrown to the basement. Every child we work with, every student we work with, every person we interact with has had trauma in some way, shape, or form. Financially, people are hurting, emotionally, psychologically. We all know this. So then, what can we do to help our students? And this is where I turn it over to Alex, because thanks to a remarkable divine intervention, we have an option here.
I don't think that Tim Salzman would mind being called divine in his intervention. I'll let us go with that. That's great. Let me tell you guys how this started, and I'll kind of be brief about it because we have so many wonderful slides to share with you. When everything hit with coronavirus, guess where it hit first? In my state, about 100 miles south of me. I'm on San Juan Island, Washington, floating off the coast of America, right on the Canadian border. You saw a little shot of it a second ago, what I'm looking out at my window. And so Seattle's about 100 miles south of me, and that's where everything hit first in the nation. By mid-March, UW and all of the Washington schools just had to shut down. I did not know Timothy Salzman, who's been the director of bands for many, many years, over 30 years at UW, as we call it up here. I did not know him previously, nor did he know me. But for some reason, I don't know why, but I must have had a reputation as being a geek, as being someone who understands technology to some degree, because I guess he knew what I did. And he called me out of the blue in the middle of March. And he said, I've got all these orchestra and band ensemble students, and we have to finish a semester, the next 2 months, 2.5 months, whatever, and I don't quite know what to do. I know I want them to keep playing their instruments. I know I want them to keep having a sense of community with each other, because of course music is social and tribal, and we are connected, and that's such a joy of what we do. And everybody was suddenly wrenched away from each other without any warning, no time to even say goodbye. This happened so suddenly out here. And finally, he said, I know that composition and improvisation might be in here somewhere. I'm just not sure how that would fit in and how that would work. But it has to be entirely online. We can't meet for the foreseeable future. So that night, I just worked on some ideas in my head, and the next day I sent him a syllabus outlining just a whole bunch of lesson plans of how it would progress from this to this to this to this, as you're going to see in detail. And I thought maybe he would just, use a couple of ideas, and that would be it. Fine. Instead, UW ended up doing the entire curriculum, as you're going to see it here, more fleshed out at this point, of course. But they ended up doing the whole thing. And best of all, it was so inspiring and wonderful about achieving all the goals that I mentioned magically, because the students were just had so much untapped creativity in them. And I've now been overseeing this with easily 25 different schools, universities, and high schools over the past few months, different versions of it. And I got to tell you, the untapped creativity is unbelievable in all of these students. So it's really been a joy. So I'm going to turn it over to Glenn now. And oh, by the way, I just want to encourage you. I put it in the chat also, and up there on that previous card. Please go ahead while we're speaking and go to the syllabus page, the curriculum page, and you can download the middle school, the high school, or the university, or all three versions of it, and have a look.
And we just updated the high school one, correct, Alex?
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's been
I'm
uploaded.
looking down here, even though I should be looking here. So Tim's quote that you're looking at right now reflects quotes I've heard throughout my life. And some of you may remember Jim Croft. He retired from Florida State several years ago. He's unfortunately not with us anymore. He was a big one on improvisation. He said that's how people get to know their instrument. And with the composition, they do learn to think differently. The actual article of that University of Washington, wrong W. We have a lot of W's here in the state. Making music at a distance. Maybe Alex, if you still have that link, If you could
Yeah,
put-
I'll put that link up as well.
that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if people want to see that. That'd be
Yeah.
really, really good.
Put that in the chat.
Okay, so I need to make a confession to my friends and colleagues, which are one and the same I'm talking to right now. I've always believed we've talked a good game about creativity, but always in the back of my mind's been, really? Or is it recreation? And part of that is just because of the jobs we do and of the expectations put upon us of the performance machine. We have concerts, those are expectations. We have solo ensemble festival, we have jazz band, we have basketball pep band, some of you have volleyball pep band, we have marching band, we have parades, we have all these different things, and it's just boom, 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 boom. And of course it depends on how you teach and what you teach. I've always been a little jealous of really fine general music teachers because of the things they're able to do. And Tim talks about this in the article too, that how he talks about how he feels I won't say he feels he cheated his students, but we've not done what we could have done. And Alex's thoughts and processes give us that opportunity. So it's our Darwin time. If we choose to evolve, and it is a choice. We just recently heard we can decide to cooperate or not to cooperate. We can choose to evolve or not to evolve. Then we can keep sharing the art form, because I feel our jobs at this point in history is to make sure the art form survives in every way we know and every way we can. And I don't mean that to be dramatic, but we are living at one of those epic changing times in world history that none of us signed up for. We learned about it in class, but we thought, wow, that's amazing those people got through. And I think of how all the various cultures have endeavored to be stamped out, be it Native American, be it the Irish, clog dancing, etc. You can just go through every single ethnicity and culture, and how the music has always survived and inspired. This is what we get to do now. Or as Bob Morrison said, we're not changing the why. We just have to change the how. And sometimes changing that can be hard. I don't know enough about this. I don't have the resources. I don't know if my students will like this. I don't. Yeah, none of us do. What happened in March for all of us, I know as public school teachers, you love acronyms, PPG, SLO, QRX, ERT, emergency response teaching. Essentially you wake up, your house is on fire, where's the hose? And that's what so now we've been through that. Some of us, Kristen sent out a survey about, are you virtual or not? If you've not taken it through WNDA, I know the email's there waiting for you. It'd be good, I think, for the organization to know. But, Saltzman's quote there, we are finding our way forward in the dark. But if we can foster excitement and involvement, then we're doing what our mission is, what our passion is. With no marching band, I was appointed assistant chair of the music department, to fill a load. That put me in charge of our social media. Right, yeah, me. But you know what? I've had to step up and learn about Facebook and Instagram, kind of Twitter, Audacity, Adobe Pro Premiere. I'm able to do things now I couldn't do before. And yeah, it took time and effort and everything else, and I'd much rather be standing in front of a group, but that's not a real option right now in the normal way. So Alex's thought process and what she's offering helps us not change the why. All we have to do is change the how, but it does give us some other options. Okay, and it's this. We can categorically show our administrators, especially in Wisconsin, we have the great advantage of not only are we meeting the standards for performing ensembles, which we do naturally, we can also show we're meeting them for composition and theory. And in Wisconsin, our WMEA standards have a technology strand that the national ones don't. And with all due respect to all of our colleagues in the schools, I would defy any other educator in your school to go to their administrator and show them that you are meeting 3 different strands of state standards in one project. And that's what this can help you do. Also, you see up there, there is a WMEA standards workshop, January 22 and 23, 6 to 8, 9 to 3. You can take Alex's information project and work with her initially, and then go to this and set it up so that you're showing your administration, hey, we are meeting standards. We are teaching. We are valid. This is good work. It's not busy work. It's not just playing the instrument. It's far more. It's real. Well, I won't say it's real music education, but it's further down the road. And as Alex mentioned, what I think you're going to find out is how excited the students get, because the one thing they desperately need in their lives right now is the ability to make music and to open up and be the young children that they used to be when they were 5, 4, 3, and would spontaneously create songs and create motifs and create melody lines, etc., and then work together to develop those. If I seem exuberant about this, that's good, because I really am. I really think this is a way to help us all. So, Alex, jump in anytime.
Okay.
So this is just some of the benefits. I mean, we all know the EUs, right? And this is all in the curriculum that was Alex posted in the chat. But I mean, all these are benefits for our students. And it's just so exciting that we have all this opportunity for us to do. Yeah, and this one, we can teach law.
You can certainly teach them respect for intellectual property, which, as we all know, has been a real problem for decades at this point, ever since everything went digital, especially with the young people. And it's an object lesson in that as well. Basically, you know, as you'll see as we go into some of the lesson learning experiences and lesson plans, what this is an object lesson where the students themselves are creating the object. They are creating these compositions, as I call them, these sonic quilts, made out of motives that they come up with and record, and that their teammates that they're broken down to come up and record, and they get to create their own pieces out of this material, and it grows and grows and grows, as you're going to see. And so one of the things about that is we want to make sure that they are writing the music themselves, coming up with these. It could be improvised or whatever, but that they're doing it themselves and not just grabbing stuff from other, other sources. So yeah, it becomes a copyright lesson as well, which is excellent.
Just so everybody knows, we are going to have time for questions at the end. Alex mentioned she's worked with a lot of school districts on this process and in this curriculum. I mean, I'm certain you'll have some questions for her. But one of the school districts is the entire Memphis, Tennessee school district, all 55 schools she's starting to work with, because they saw our national webinar and got excited about it and thought, let's do this. So she can tell you more about that at the end. The course involves synchronous and asynchronous delivery. How many of you ever thought you'd know how to spell those words just like that? I use the words as the writer of the curriculum plan for high school at UC, based on Alex's work, of course. I use the phrase learning experiences because I don't know if you have a half hour, 42 minutes, if you have small groups, or what you have. So this is essentially one of those things where here's the ingredients. Was it Blue Chef or something? You get all the ingredients and you get to make what you want to. Same thing store here. The sequence, though, the sequence is essential. So no matter what scenario you have, if you maintain a sequence and make it larger, smaller, whatever you need, do it. So how to get started? First of all, get your ducks in a row. We all know the pitfalls of technology and of kinda knowing something. Trust me, with my social media skills, when from a few weeks ago, oh my word. I learned about keeping ducks in a row. Audacity seems to work well. I know BandLab is out there, and are any of you on BandLab? Okay, good. Email me with your thoughts on it, please. It's hayesg@uww.edu. I'm starting to get to learn that too, to try and help people with that. And just make certain, that everything's ready to go as best you possibly can. You want to set up a mat. Whoops, sorry. Don't touch things. You want to set up a folder as you would with anything else. Again, we don't know what platform your school uses: Google Meet, Seesaw, Canvas, D2L, whatever else is out there, no doubt. Just set it up as you would for any course, and it's accessible by all of your students. Okay. So, Alex, you want to talk about the sound team since you've worked with?
Sure. Most ensembles are, you know, large, fairly large, and this kind of project will work best and be most rewarding for the students when you break them down into small groups of anywhere between, you know, 4 and no more than 10 students. So we call those the sound teams, and it makes everything much more manageable because each sound team is going to be creating at first about a 15-second long motive that they are going to record against a drone from any pitch. So we start off usually with A flat, but their pitches will be available. All the different pitches in the Western scale will be available. They're recording these short snippets that then they upload to the group file, and then everybody downloads all of their teammates' files, and then opens up Audacity, loads each motive into a separate track, and the drone as well, which now we have a longer version of the drone that can be a couple minutes, or they can double it, whatever they need. And then the fun begins, because then they start mixing and matching and doing whatever they want with these motives to create a piece. The amazing thing is no two pieces will ever be the same. No two motives are the same. I encourage them, and we in the syllabus, because you don't need me to do this, and the syllabus is totally free, by the way. I mean, this is not a sales pitch. I just have to make that very clear that you know, it's available for everybody to just download and run with it. That's the whole point, because I just want to help. But the concept of music is very broad, and we all want to help make it as broad as possible. It's not just, motives aren't just pitches and rhythms. They can be sounds. They can be, you know, sound design. They can be gestures. They can be grunts. They can be vocalizations. They can be anything, especially if the instrumentalists don't happen to have their primary instrument, like their 5-octave marimba, in the living room next door or something, right? So we expand their sense of sound, and they have the tools, especially if they're lucky enough to have a phone, then they have a recording device on which they can capture any kind of sound they want. And when we begin, we make sure that they understand not to have to use the motive without doctoring it in the very beginning, so that everybody can see how the piece develops from there. Once they start doing additional rounds of this, as you're going to see in the next slides, then it develops, we take off, as we say, the training wheels, and they can be very, very creative in how they chop up the motives, use effects that we call plugins to distort the sound or change the sounds, and just, it gets wilder and wilder and wilder with each round.
Fantastic. And one thing I want to comment on also, one of the things I've always believed about music is that it exists to be experienced. And I can't remember, the name of the author right now, but a great poem from a composer who says, there's more to life than liking or disliking something. It's the experience of. And I'll have to dig that out, see if I can post it somehow.
Yeah, and on the heels of that, I just want to toss in that the whole concept of this curriculum is that it's about the process, not the product. They will all end up with a pretty amazing product in terms of the pieces that they're creating, but that it's about the journey, it's about the process, and so we really emphasize that.
So one of the things I want to emphasize in this first slide is small Roman 3. This is based on my experience. You have to make certain the students know about the placement of a recording device, how to check the quality of the recording, how to adjust the volume of a recording, which they can do easily on their phone, but we're so used to just setting it down and doing it, as opposed to intentionality of the recording, because that's so important. You know, Taylor Swift's not going to go into and set her phone down, make some sort of recording, put it out there for millions of people. No, it's going to go through a very distinct process. And just make sure they know how to do that. Most of the other stuff they will know how to do already. And then Alex, I'm going to ask you to talk about this slide, please.
Sure. And by the way, regarding the tech, I want to put everybody at ease, because even though, yes, in a perfect world, it's great if we all know how to use Audacity and how to record properly. But if you don't, there are plenty of people on hand who do, who can be brought in. And you'll see on the website, on the link, that there are a few consultants listed right there. People I worked with, wonderful guys from UW, who can come in and help. And you might even have people at your own school. A lot of people do. So don't be overwhelmed with the tech. For those of you who feel like, I don't know how to place a microphone or whatever, and I'm not sure if I have the time to learn, I totally get that. And there are all kinds of ways to accomplish this. The other great thing is that there are a ton of tutorials online that you will direct the students to immediately, even before you start. And you're going to say, okay, check out these tutorials and keep going, and practice with this, with Audacity or whatever you end up using. And when you hit a wall, do exactly what Alex Shapiro did when she was learning to use all of her Ferrari stuff over here. You know, you guys are driving the Volkswagen Bug with Audacity, but it's all the same. Just type into the Google what your problem is, and up will come the solution. So, so I just don't want you all to feel, you know, overwhelmed with the tech thing. Glenn, would you, because it's a little hard for me to see the screen, tell me what is on the experience that we're looking at here,
Not a problem.
and I'll talk
We've
about
got to
it.
take the shine off those orcas out in the bay in front of you. Keep reflecting too much. This is about explain the use of motifs and the structure of music in all genres.
Oh yeah, exactly. So one of the things, especially when I pop in to do these, and again, you don't need me. So any of you can talk about this or bring in a composer from your school or whomever. But when we talk about the composition side of this, I always love to put it in the context of gestures. I want to keep them away from the intimidating concept of, you know, of having to compose music. You know, that can shut somebody down right there, because unfortunately, especially in our society, students have the immediate reaction of, oh, I can't do that. You know, it's this mindset. And we, of course, just want to give them of course you can do it. You're musical. You already play instruments. You have so much music in you. I mean, I've always said this to students, you know, my whole life, is encouraging everybody to organize sound. So now's their opportunity. So when I talk about motives, I give them examples, and they're in the documents, the support documents on the page, examples of whether it's Beethoven's Fifth or the piece you might have heard coming in, Tight Squeeze, which is very motivic, or pop tunes or anything. Every piece of music is based on very small snippets of information that are then manipulated very cleverly to create a whole. And so we give the students ideas and concepts of what that is, what a motive or a passage is, and the fact that, as I said before, it doesn't have to just be notes. It can be all kinds of things. And you set them free with that. And then I love to set them free with how to start, because that's what they're always wondering. How do I start to compose? I get this, but what, then what? So I tell them, you know, think about the emotions you're feeling. Very important, especially when we talk about other intersections with social emotional learning, right? And what Bob Morris and Scott Edgar and others have been promoting so beautifully about the whole student and the whole person. And get them feeling their emotions, about whatever emotion they might want to convey in their piece. Write down some words about it. And then if they start to sense a gesture of something in their heads, encourage them to draw it out. You don't have to be, you know, Monet to do this. So all of these different steps toward creativity, and this is frankly what I do as a professional, and I stay in the right side of my brain, away from music paper as long as I possibly can, before I have to, you know, translate it into something that other people are going to play. So I encourage them this too, because I think that's what younger composers need, is that sense of permission to feel the gesture. So there you go.
I'm so glad you mentioned the SEL aspect, Alex, because I know, you know, being married to a public school teacher, that's a big aspect right now that we mentioned earlier about everyone has had trauma. This gives your students the chance to allow them to explore those feelings, to codify them, which is what music has always done. Be it, you know, Epicenium by John Paulson, or October by Eric Whitacre, or O Magnum Mysterium by Morton Lawrenson, or Tight Squeeze by Alex Shapiro. You know, those pieces evoke feelings in us because that's a natural part of every human being. With everything going on in their lives, this gives them the chance to have that opportunity that they so desperately need, of personal expression.
And I just want to jump in on that with one statement for all of you, you know, as wonderful educators. This is something I do regularly now when I'm zooming into classes, is I take a moment to acknowledge that 2020 has been one heck of a year, and it's been filled with anxiety and stress and uncertainty, and a sense for everybody, for all the students, probably, of being a bit out of control, right? And I always tell them that we are so lucky to be musicians, because when we're playing our instruments or organizing sound and lost in that world, we have total control. They have total control. There are no wrong ways to do this. Music is not wrong. Some notes sound a little better next to each other than others, of course, sure, but there's no wrong way to do it. They can't fail. And I think in a year like this and a time like this, they need to hear this, and it's very reassuring.
And it's something that they will get out of bed for in the morning and put put the donut down or uh, put the iPad down. Not that I've
Put
seen,
the donut down.
not that I've seen anyone teaching online here at the house this past week because of COVID hitting their school. Okay, so learning experience two, I call it asynchronous homework because to me, homework has always been asynchronous, something they have to do on their own. This is what then they do, and you can read that there. Alex mentioned that the drones are available and from her website. It's great if they have, most students and children I've seen always have the earbuds. You see them walking around town and they're elementary, middle school, and you say hi to them and they don't acknowledge you. It's not because you're older, it's because then you look at the earbuds coming out of their ears, so it's okay, fine. And it really helps. And I honestly don't know anyone above the age of 8 that doesn't have a cell phone access at least. So then they do their recording, and Alex described earlier. And then this is where you start some synchronous discussion. What makes music interesting, memorable? These are things that generally we don't have time to talk about in our rehearsals. And now we do. How does music evoke feelings? And this is one thing, again, I learned through experimentation, how to save a chat. Always a good thing, because then you can take that and put it into a document that they can all read. And then the next one is really important. You guide the creation of the rubric that will be used for the formal assessment at the conclusion of the unit. We all know, all of us, myself included, we have to have some form of assessment to show the people up above our pay grades. And that's fine. That's not a problem, because we do need to be able to assess the success of composition. We still look at it, though, as formative. To them, it may be summative, but for us, it's formative. And for the students to be able to say, yeah, on this composition, this worked. I would suggest maybe this. So you want the students to be involved in the creation of the rubric using the national, or, well, in our case, I would say WMEA standards. And by doing that, they have ownership. It's their lighthouse as they navigate, heading into their final product. So then you demonstrate or have, the tutorials Alex mentioned earlier, and thank goodness for YouTube tutorials. They've been saving me quite a few times. And they start the process. And Alex, you can amplify this any time of doing the recording and uploading into the folders.
That's right. And but I want to also toss in vis-a-vis the last slide that this is what they're getting in terms of an education from this process. They're playing their instruments, yes. They're writing music, yes. They're learning technology that no matter what they do in life, they're going to need to be comfortable with this, just like we are, because we're only going forward in the world with an online basis of life, even when thankfully the pandemics are over. They need these tools to understand how to operate the software comfortably, and in terms of form and analysis. Every piece they play or listen to after writing their own music, they're going to think differently about. They're going to hear differently. They're going to be able to identify, oh, this theme is here, and then the composer took a motive, a little part of it, and put it there, and look, it's over there now. They're going to have that skill set. And never again are they going to look at a piece of music or hear or play it the same way. And I think that's just so valuable in terms of the future, even if they never write another note or even play another note in their lives, what they're going to have with them for the future in terms of how the sausage is made, right? And understanding that. So that's part that gets me excited about this. So the next slide, Glenn. Yes, you wanted me to comment on something.
I think you just did.
Okay, great.
So this is where, and yeah, well, you want to talk about Chris Mathical actually for just a second?
Sure. Chris is a wonderful graduate conducting student. He may already have gotten his degree at this point, I'm not sure, but he's a PhD candidate at UW, University of Washington, the other W. And he was involved deeply with running the sound teams at UW this spring when we first rolled this out. And he created some tutorials himself, which are linked here. They're linked in the document that you can download. And they're just terrific. Very, very basic, very helpful. They'll teach us all, Even I had to learn Audacity because I'm using Digital Performer, which is a big pro version. But they all do the same things. All these DAWs, digital audio workstations, whether it's Reaper or Ableton or Digital Performer or Audacity or GarageBand, You've heard of a lot of these, BandLab. They all do the same thing. It's like word processing. You know, you're just organizing sound instead of words. You move, copy, paste, move around, cut, delete. Same thing. It just sounds better. That's my motto. So, and Chris is terrific. He's a wonderful musician and very good at the tech. So,
Thank you. Okay, so again, what happens now is the process kind of keeps building. We'll make sure we have time for questions at the end. But learning experience 4, how do we judge the quality of musical works and performances? And these are great concepts for us to be able to teach because, as Alex just mentioned, students will never listen again. I've often looked at my students in methods class or wind ensemble and said, okay, whatever is on your phone or whatever you use for listening, what pieces are going to still be around in 50 years? You know, when you're retired over at the retirement center, what's going to be on the oldie station? And then tell me why. What makes that piece? Why is that a masterwork of hip hop or country western or, you know, any genre you want? And if we can get them thinking along those lines, it does change how they listen, which changes their lives and makes them more introspective, I believe.
and another fun assignment to give them, by the way, is to tell them to go out and find motives. In other words, after you give them the lesson about motives, tell them go out in 3 different genres, maybe tell them to go deep, and in 3 different styles of music, find pieces that represent where you can talk about the motive. Share that with your sound team mates. When you have your online discussion, it's really fun. It's really fun.
And again, students get excited about this. It's not really just online delivery. It's saying, okay, go find this, go explore. We all know how we love discovering something new. And it takes away that whole screen time exhaustion, I believe. Mm-hmm. And then, we can start to talk about texture, unity and variety, rhythmic interaction, complementary and contrasting musical lines, duration and or tempo. And these are things also we can tie into the connection standards if we wanted to. So yet another aspect of the education you're providing your students through this process. Big thing, notation is not required. It's suggested if you want to, but it can be intimidating to have those 5 lines and, drawing everything in. If graphics are fine, it just to get them going up. Okay, it's strongly recommended that you don't edit or chop up anything at this point in time. Alex, you want to explain that premise?
Sure. And I think I mentioned before that, for the object lesson, we need, as with any analysis, right? You need to identify the germ of the idea and then to see how the composers spun it out, right? So they're doing the same thing. So I asked them in the first round, the younger students, particularly in university, we hedge the rules a little bit. But for the younger students, just keep the motives as they were delivered to you and stack them or, stagger them or put them linearly like train cars, whatever you want to do with them. But use them as a whole. That you can repeat them. I tell them to feel free to put some reverb on it so it sounds good, because that's very important, and because this is a recording project. And as Glenn said, not only is notation not required, but frankly, I'm fine with them just treating it as a direct-to-disc recording project. They don't have to notate it in any way, because it's about the gesture and the expression and them playing. And we want to encourage them to play well, because they're making a recording. So when a student plays something back and it's got some clams in it, I'll call them on it and I'll say, you know what? Unlike a live performance, you have the chance when you're recording to redo it. Go redo it, So these are very good lessons for them.
And I want to encourage you also. Go ahead, Alex.
No, go ahead, please.
I also want to encourage you to really just keep coming back to the idea, because there's a point in time which education gets so judgmental, it seems, and students can get judgmental about each other. You've all had the experience of preparing something for a private lesson and knowing that you had it just the way it was supposed to go, and going into that lesson and being told, well, no. It needs to go this way after you're giving heart and soul. I'm not going to look at the screen. I see some smiles, though. And that hurts. We want to make certain to have the atmosphere open that, okay, that's a wonderfully creative idea. Can you explain to me? Describe in musical form so that it's not judgmental. It's formative. It's organic, as to use Alex's word. And it just inspires them even more. The more positive reinforcement they get, the more they want to do. And the more they want to do, the more involved they are. And the more involved they are, they benefit, and to be honest, so do all of us as a profession. So then we're going to kick in a little bit on speed here. This is in LE5. You can start talking about more informal assessment. You can start again teaching more and more music vocabulary when you introduce words like augmentation, etc. And the link is there for all of this as we go through this.
Yeah, and just to, because I know we want time for questions, I'll just give you an overview of the things that become additive to the process. With each new round of adding motives, we invite them to get rid of the drone. They've been doing a lot of this all to one undulating, very interesting sounding drone with no thirds, so there's no implication of major or minor, but it's got some implications of not only octaves but fourths and fifths. And it undulates, it's interesting. But then at a certain point, we want to take that drone out and have them learn about vertical harmony and the striking difference that their compiled piece will sound so differently when they change the bass line or when they change a middle harmonic element, whatever the registration is. And so we take out that and ask them to put in their own bass line. We let them start to chop things up with digital audio. We let them move the files around in really creative ways and bring in other electronic sounds from the plugins and bring in effects like distortion or whatever they want to do. And all of a sudden it ramps up, considerably. For young players, by the way, I think, I'm not sure if we mentioned it or if it was on a slide, but for young players, we often start them out with a limited pitch set. Instead of all 12 notes of the Western scale, from which they can choose, we give them 6. And let each sound team start out with 6 different notes. And the notes are not related in scale because that also will generate more interesting ideas for them and get them a little bit off the edge in terms of getting out of the very, very tonally based sound world. One of the interesting things, by the way, about this, in terms of expanding the way they hear music for the 21st century and beyond, is that when you have, let's say, 6 different people in a sound team developing 6 different motives, even though it's against a drone that has one pitch, it's made clear to them that just because it's a flat drone does not mean you have to be in A flat. And the great thing is many of them do not go anywhere near A flat, with what they do. When the kids are putting together their pieces from these motives that they've all done separately, guess what? It's wonderfully bitonal music. It's really adventurous. There are things that they realize, like the first time they'll lay something in, it kind of sounds a little wrong, but then they repeat it a few times and suddenly it sounds really right. So they get these very exciting lessons that expand their sense of harmony in a way that I don't frankly see enough of in music education for young people. They're often given very tonal music, and music is so much more than that.
So I'm going to cruise through the slides. I call them the SparkNote slides here in just a minute. But again, the high school version, currently there are a total of 19 learning experiences that you can use. If you choose middle school, 11 learning experiences. Choose whichever path fits where you are and with your students. If you're at a high school where, okay, we're not as maybe we can only do 11, that's fine. It's absolutely fine. I think one of the big things though is to make certain that you just pace it out so that when you have time for that formal assessment, that rubric we talked about earlier, you're able to use it and your students have grown from there. And to build on what Alex just said, you can do this project multiple times with keep mixing people up as well. It'll always be there for you. So,
and it's also possible, by the way, to do this if you don't have a long swath of time to do this. If you just wanted to do it over even 3 or 4 lessons and that's it, you could do that. Yeah. So it's very, very scalable, very scalable. You can go 20 rounds or 3, depending on how much time you have in your lesson plans.
The key being to get the students composing, opening their minds about the creation within the art form. So we make a lot of suggestions throughout. One of the big ones is the sharing of the projects. I recommend at the end that you also share, you can open up these recordings to the community online via the web and make certain you send specific invitations to all your administrators and all your school board members so that they see that you are still teaching at a very high level and meeting all kinds of state and national standards. So I know Ryan's recording this, so you can see what it just keeps building and building and layering on. So yeah, here's 19, and this is where you can share it in any way, shape, or form, 2 class sessions or several class sessions, or freely. You can assign students a specific sound team that they weren't a part of for informal assessment. Any way you want to do it, and any way you want to use that rubric that you and the students created. And then you have that formal assessment and another step forward in the process. So this is what Alex was talking about, some additional concepts. Maybe start giving them a framework, or different
Give them a
sound teams.
tempo,
Yeah.
or have each sound team determine among themselves their own tempo. Like quarter equals 88, everybody do that, and they create a click track, easy to do. Or they all decide, they assign to each other different elements, like, okay, this person's going to do a melodic element, this person's going to do a percussive element, this person's going to do a textural weird thing, this person's going to do kind of a bass line thing. They can pre-plan it if they want. Usually they don't, and that's where it's really quite fun, because then it's quite a surprise box of candies and box of chocolates. Nobody knows what they're going to get when they bite in, and that really gets their creativity going. So it's almost like a game show. Like, here you are. It's like Iron Chef for music. Here's the secret ingredient. Go make something out of it.
Good analogy. Brian Balmich, a lot of you know that name. He did write a piece using Alex's process as a guideline, Little Matrix Music.
Brian is fantastic. I'm sure a lot of you know him. Great, great guy, wonderful composer, and just great human being. And he also is available to come in. He knows this project very, very well. And if anybody wants to bring him in to work with the students, he's very available for that. He's a great guy.
Yeah, indeed. So additional ideas. And, what have the reactions been? There's one that Alex shared, and there have been a ton of others. But I love this one. You've helped us keep them engaged and moving forward as musicians and creative people. To me, that absolutely just says it all. Like, okay, I'm on board.
Yeah.
Our time is now. And this is one really effective way that we can continue to do what we love to do, help our students grow through music. We each had somebody light our fire. Mine was Charles Boulanger in 7th grade. And I still remember his impact on my life, and how he just, took that gas control and zing, and it was full flame. I knew in 7th grade I had to be a band director because of what he gave to me. No one joins our organizations because they want to learn to play the B-flat scale. It's because of how music makes them feel. This is in line with everything our students need right now. I won't say that this is the way, but this is definitively one great method. Back to Darwin quote. It is our choice. So, questions. I'm assuming, folks, you can just unmute yourself, or Kristen, Ryan, how do you want this to work?
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you. This was really sparking ideas in me, and I'm excited. I always have a create unit, and this could really ramp it up. A question I have, do you by any chance have anything with you, like an example of a composition that we could hear, or not really?
Yeah, well, actually, I can, if I can, I'll screen share. I can play you something, or later, if we,
Or maybe later on.
better. In the bottom of the link to the article in UW's newsletter that was done, there are 2 examples, and that was only midway through the process. So I encourage you guys to click on that article that's in the chat already, and you can hear 2 examples at the bottom. There you go.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
If you have a question, just raise your hand, unmute, or if you are shy to do that, you could put it in the chat. Hopefully we have some questions. I see smiles, but
I guess I could ask.
Very available by email, obviously. If something occurs to you after the fact, when we all say goodbye, just reach out to Glenn or myself, and we'll answer.
I do have a question for beginners. I teach middle school. How young would you recommend starting this? Is this something that I could use with my first year 6th grade players, or is it something that you would recommend waiting until they have a better handle on their instrument? I guess just thoughts on that with youngers.
Yeah, my attitude is you could definitely do it with 6th graders. That the expectations, as you say, they don't quite know how to make very beautiful sounds on their instruments yet, and that's fine. But to encourage, as I said before, any kind of sound making, any kind of gesture, maybe have them try extended techniques right off the bat. Like blow into your mouthpiece, make a weird sound. Give them permission to do different things with their instruments, in addition to if they want to try, do melodies, etc. That could open up sound worlds for them really, really fast, as long as they are comfortable with using Audacity, which I think, a 12-year-old or whatever one is in how old is one in sixth grade? 12? I would imagine they're pretty good at this point, that they could do that, because it is reliant on the tech. They have to be able to record and manipulate in the tech. So if you feel that your students, any of you, are at the point where they can do that, my view is the younger the better, get them expressing themselves.
Couple quick stories to answer my take on your question. First of all, any 12-year-old and you say, hey, learn this technology, okay, and it's done. Secondly, Evelyn Glennie told the story at a conference in which she wanted to play percussion. She went to the music teacher and he gave her a drum and said, here, take this home, come back next week. She got home, was so excited, got on her bed, opened the drum case, and there it was, a snare drum. No sticks, no stand, no nothing, etc. So she started exploring the drum. She went back the next week for her lesson, and she came in, and he said, okay, take it out of the case, play Rain for me, play Thunder for me. And that process got us Evelyn Glennie. Also, years ago, Sidney Hawkinson, when he was in Minneapolis as part of the Composers in the School process, wrote a 3-volume set called A Contemporary Primer for Band that was completely non-traditionally notated and was meant for day one of instruction. So any way we choose to teach them, they will learn. Because especially, I love beginners because they're so excited that they get to create a sound. They have been yearning to be able to do this. And we get to facilitate that. So yeah, I would say, and if they don't know Audacity, then there's something out there maybe on Seesaw or some simple little Raspberry computer thing. We do what we always do as music educators. We find a way.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Yeah.
All right.
Any other questions? I have a request while it's still silent then. Seriously, I'm kind of the caretaker. Alex is maybe the caretaker of the high school and middle school document. When you implement this, if you've got any suggestions, any feedback, please email me, say, hey, Glenn, this worked. You need to rework this. I suggest making this change, etc., or addition. Please, please, please. Yeah, I know I'm a university band director and music educator, okay, but I'm a band director. My students are chronologically older, and most of you picked up on that. But we're all doing the same thing. We are literally all doing the same thing. So I'm a colleague, and I'm asking for your assistance in helping this project be even more widespread, because I believe in it so strongly, and also more effective, because that's our students, all of our students need this right now.
And I want to echo that, because even though I'm not a band director nor an educator, I am Zooming every week, often multiple times, just with young people, not just universities and pros and all that. I'm like the queen of Zoom, I think. And I like Max Headroom with only the impixelated head and no torso. That's me. And so I work with an awful lot of middle school and high school students virtually. So please let me know if there's something that can be improved, even just reading it. And even if you're not running the program, definitely let Glenn and me know, because it's water, we're constantly shaping it and, directing it in different ways. So it's a living document.
No, thank you. We appreciate that. And I appreciate this. I think this is an excellent resource. This curriculum would be an excellent resource for people. So I encourage you, send it out to your friends so that they know it's out there, and your directors in the area that, where you are, because we have a lot of people, that maybe are really, we know there's a lot of people really struggling, and this could be a really good thing. So I'm very excited about it. I'm excited to try it. I really want to just thank Glenn and Alex for being here and for, being so willing to share this with us. I got to thank Ryan for running the Zoom meeting for me. And do we have any other questions for them before we let them go? Because we're kind of coming up on our hour here.
I have one quick comment, please. Yeah. And we want this shared as much as possible, but I would recommend, rather than someone else sending the link to Alex, rather than sending the document, send them the link to Alex's
Yeah.
website, because there they see the curriculum, they see everything they need to see,
Yeah.
as opposed to just the curriculum.
I agree. She has a fabulous website.
Thanks. And one thing, just a fun point of information for you guys to wrap this up, is that the wonderful Timothy Salzman, who really is a gem of a guy, I'm sure some of you know him. He, with his students, they are planning this whenever they can be live again, because at this rate, we don't know. But they are planning to do their pieces in a live concert as a multimedia event with the dance department, and with them playing and notating, works on top of the tracks that they've recorded and the pieces they've recorded. So this can actually morph to live performance. And UW is going to be a first in line with that kind of an approach. It's really fascinating to me. So all the worlds collide.
Tim is great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I just want to thank everybody so much for this morning tuning in and letting us chat with you about our excitement for this learning process. And I want to thank you all as educators for all the dedication that you bring to the field and to these young minds. And Kristen and Ryan, thank you so much. And Glenn, as you guys all know, Glenn is just everybody's North Star. He is amazing, and my admiration for him is just through the roof. So many thanks.
Thank you, Alex. But this is your baby. We're just trying to help raise it. And everybody that's
I need
on,
all the help I can get.
thank you so much for listening and letting us come talk your ear off today. But this is just really exciting.
Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Well, I hope to see you guys